What's going on, guys? Carmine here, and, well, that episode, that cliffhanger. God damn it, Game of Thrones, why do you do this to me? What the hell just happened here? Needless to say, it was a good one, and I will admit that I am enjoying this weird trend we've been seeing lately with this season of ending on strong notes. Every episode seems to top each other, and it's gotten a nice little pattern. Episode 1 being the weakest, but still good, had no action and almost no dialogue. Then episode 2 with some great action, episode 3 with no action but good dialogue, and now episode 4 with great action and a nice cliffhanger. If you've noticed, the first 3 episodes hadn't done that for us yet, with this one possibly leaving the audience wanting more and yelling at the ending credits. And this is the first real big one, and of course it delivered, especially if you're like me and you enjoyed Jaime's character. Now before we get to it, I will say there were a few stumbles and a few weird moments in this episode, and we'll get to them, but I'd like to know what you guys thought of the episode, because there were some people who praised it on Twitter as awesome, and some who weren't too keen on it. So be sure to leave your comments down below. Also, the 7th episode of the Game of Thrones podcast will be on my channel later this week, so look forward to that. Let's get to it. First, let's start off with Winterfell, which I had some mixed feelings on. Peter Baelish this season has just been awful, and this time around he's a little less so. I love the guy, he's one of my favorite characters, but I'm just hoping he gets written off really quickly. However, his shadiness with Bran, and how the kid kinda replies back that chaos is a ladder, I will admit, that was fun. It also raises more questions about Bran's character development. I get that his purpose now is to serve as a war power against the White Walkers, but what did actually happen to him? When Mira comes in, he acts like a douchebag. You can see that she maybe has feelings for him. I doubt she's inching towards asking for a reward, which kind of seemed like it at first, but they did spend a good amount of time together, and she lost a good part of herself as well during their travels. Bran being cold is, well, kind of weird. It's almost as though the influx of memories and information has changed him because he's forgotten who he is, in a sense. Keep in mind that, in the show at least, it's been 3, maybe 4 years, and Bran has the memories of so many people that maybe he doesn't remember who he is anymore because of it. If he's 14 years old and has 14 years worth of his memories and experience, what if that was removed or lost by the mass amount of info from everyone else and their memories? And maybe his were cast aside or overwritten. Kind of like uploading pictures of cat videos on Facebook. I'm sure there are things on Facebook other than cat videos, but I just can't seem to find it. And Arya is finally back. Yay! I think. I don't know, her reunion with Sansa was a little awkward. I don't know if this is because Arya is now a different person and psychologically damaged, or because it was written badly and I just wasn't feeling it. These two actresses are actually best friends in real life, so they should have some chemistry as sisters on screen, but it just wasn't there. This could have been something to do with the showrunners not knowing how to write Arya's psychological state, or maybe her story. One moment she is chilling with some soldiers, and the next she's being all distant towards Hot Pie. It's almost like it's being written by 2 completely different people with opposing opinions on what Arya should be. I buy that she and Sansa are happy to be reunited, but it seems like Arya is just there visiting and has somewhere else to be, or at least that's the vibe I got. I don't know if that was the intention, but there it is. I will say I did like Bran's interaction with her a little better. It's not as creepy as him and Sansa last time, but it was still much better. And as for that scene with Brienne, yeah, I'm not buying that. Arya has learned a few tricks here and there, I'll give you that, and I can believe that, without skills and strength, she can be a stealthy assassin, but I have no idea where any of those moves came from. Yeah, she's been training throughout the series, you know, Sirius lessons and all, but I don't know, she shouldn't be that good where she could stand up to Brienne better than most. It doesn't seem earned in my opinion. It was a little weird and out of nowhere, and this is one of the few scenes that have people divided. But overall, the Winterfell stuff was okay, but it felt more like transition rather than story. Yeah, Arya is back and all, but nothing really changed, which is becoming a bit of a habit for Winterfell lately. Now let's head on over to King's Landing, and I will say, why was this scene even here? I feel as though this could have been included in the last episode, but I guess it's to reiterate how important the gold Jaime got from Highgarden really was. The Iron Bank is a shady organization who really loves money and making sure people owe them money. I do like Tycho's eagerness to continue business with the Iron Bank after the payment it received, and I also did enjoy that book reference to the Golden Company. Now, this scene was too short for me to even have a proper opinion on it, other than it being, there. But I wonder if mentioning the Golden Company, and then later the failure to pay back the gold, I wonder if that means we'll see them in the show due to the Iron Bank not getting their money. if you're not a book reader, then this doesn't really mean much to you, but the Golden Company is infamous for a reason, and they have some Targaryen ties to their history, and I'll leave it at that for now. But the King's Landing scene, too short, but I do like that we're getting some book mentions and maybe even some foreshadowing here. Now let's get to Dragonstone, which I thought was pretty awesome this episode. Some people hated the brief scene of girl talk between Dany and Melisandre, but I'll admit I thought it was fine, mainly because the characters do need some time off from all the strategy and alliance talk, but the whole scene with Davos, Jon, and Melisandre discussing backgrounds is more of what I enjoy, and shows the audience a world outside Westeros and Essos. The part I thought was a little off was the terrible sexual tension in the cave with Dany and Jon, and how it's a little too obvious it's what the showrunners are going for. Even though I don't want them to get together, you can tell it's gonna happen by how long they stare into each other's eyes. Ugh. But all that aside, I thought Dragonstone was pretty good, especially with the cool revelations about the children, the White Walkers, and their war. We also get the Theta symbol again, which will be spoken about more later on in depth. The scene between Jon and Theon was great, but I will say I do hope that eventually we get a scene between them bonding, and maybe even Theon thanking Jon for defeating Ramsay. Even though Theon did kinda take Winterfell and fuck over Robb's strategy, still, I think there's a moment for Theon and Jon to bond as brothers who were adopted and have different backgrounds. The best part of Dragonstone this episode has got to be Dany calling out Tyrion, though, on his bullshit. It shows that she isn't stupid and knows he was trying to spare his siblings a gruesome death through dragonfire, which Dany low-key understood. With her allies defeated and 1/3 of her army, or 1/4 depending on who you ask, on the other side of the continent, she is ready to do what we've wanted her to do since Season 2 began, use dragons to defeat her enemies. Also, Dany asking Jon what she should do is also a nice touch. Even though she just met him, it shows she's willing to extend a handout and allow his opinions to weigh in on her mind. If she's gonna rule, then she should learn to take every opinion before making a final decision. However, the whole bend the knee thing at this point is becoming a meme, and I'll be honest, I want to see her randomly do that more and more now. But once again, Dragonstone, not bad. I did enjoy it this episode. So far, every episode, Dragonstone has not disappointed, and we hope it keeps doing the same. Now let's get to the awesomeness of this episode, the moment we've all been waiting for. Even though we had a full-on dragon attack last season against the Myronese slave ships, it was never the dragon battle we've wanted. This episode delivered that and more. We got some good discussion, although you could call it a bit of filler, between Jaime, Bronn, and Dickon, and even Randall Tarly gets a line or two, which is fine. This is something I've wanted from Game of Thrones since Season 1, and that is the aftermath of a siege or big battle. Even if it was off-screen, it was nice to have a little bit of it, and it's a nice little touch as well. We also got something we haven't seen too much of ever since Season 5, and that was Bronn being, well, Bronn. He got to be one of the first few people in a long time to badly wound a dragon, and we finally see the result of Qyburn's anti-dragon weapon, which was pretty cool. Even though he missed the head, he still gave it a nasty wound, but the one thing I wonder about is why the hell didn't she go in with all 3 dragons? CGI budget, got it, but that aside, I know one of them is good enough, but if she really wants to set an example, then she should have probably gone all out and overpowered the hell out of the opposition. I also really enjoy the formation and the look on the Lannister soldiers' faces, of fear and uncertainty. Fighting a large lizard that breathes fire is sure to damage morale and troop composition, and they showed that, which is good. My one disappointment, which you can brush off, is me wanting to watch a 1v1 army fight against the Lannister soldiers, who are trained soldiers, against Dothraki horsemen before the dragon arrived. Dothraki fighting armed soldiers with armor is always a toss-up, so it would have been a good fight. Oh, and fuck you to that Dothraki guy who said, "Your people are bad at fighting." You have a dragon, fuck off. And why was Tyrion there? I don't see why he would come. And how did Dany and the Dothraki get there so quickly after the Battle of Highgarden? One thing I'm sure you can all agree on is that Game of Thrones desperately needs a clock and calendar to tell us how long it's been since the previous episode. But overall, the Field of Fire scene was fantastic. Had a very nice desolation of Smaug feel to the whole, the whole thing, the whole battle. And even the scenes leading up to it were pretty good with Bronn and Jaime. And speaking of Jaime, he is the MVP of this episode. Charging in like that towards Dany, even though the dragon was there next to her, was epic. Shame he couldn't have just, thrown the damn thing and made this a lot more interesting if he hit her. Even if the fire didn't get him, he would have still been eaten regardless. So, but that cliffhanger was nice. Hopefully Jaime doesn't die, but if he does, then it'll definitely deliver that nice punch to the gut that we've all been waiting for. Too many secondary characters have been dying off left and right, and not enough main characters. Even though I love Jaime, it would keep me hooked even more if he was killed off or removed for a majority of the season. It would add more tension to Cersei's scenes, and maybe cause her to up her methods a bit more. Not only that though, but him falling into the lake with the armor still on, there's definitely going to be a lot of videos detailing whether or not you can take off your armor underwater or not. Just like there was during the end of Season 5 when Sansa and Theon jumped off that the castle into the snowbank. You know, a lot of people were wondering whether or not you could survive a fall like that. So there are a lot of videos made, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of videos made about this as well. But overall, this episode, until the last couple of scenes, was alright. Randomly including King's Landing and that awkward stuff in Winterfell were a little off for me, but Dragonstone and the Field of Fire really saved this from being the first episode that was a bummer. As of right now, this is not the best episode so far. That honor goes to episode 3, but it's still up there in my opinion, and my one hope is that it keeps ending on some good high notes. And before anybody mentions it, yes, I do realize that this is quite possibly the shortest episode of Game of Thrones ever. Excluding the intro, credits, and all that, this comes in at around 45 to 48 minutes, but the content we got makes up for it. My issues for Season 6 were that they never bothered to make up for the lack of time with great content. And yes, I am aware that this episode was leaked ahead of time, and we'll be discussing that on the next episode of the Game of Thrones podcast, which you should definitely check out if you haven't already. Episode 7 will be on my channel within the next few days, so be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss it, and be sure to hit that like button on this video if you enjoyed. Leave your thoughts down below, and once again, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.